episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And at the end of 2024, made the commitment to bring you some more breaking news, and then all hell broke loose with Luigi Mangione and others. And maybe it was a mistake, but I don't think it is. So today there's sort of breaking news. I mean, there's a new development, and it is in the Donna Adelson case. Of course, she's accused in the murder for hire plot against FSU professor Dan Markel, who was gunned down in his driveway back on July 18th of 2014. He hung on for a little bit and passed away the following day on July 19th. But since this is our OG case, made a quick call to Tim Jansen, famed Tallahassee criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor, and the professor without Marianne. She is the professor emerita at the University of Nebraska. She's taught all over the place, and she knows the law inside and out. At the 6:30 mark, or the 30 after the hour, I should say, because everyone's in a different time zone, Dave Arenberg, who is now, I believe, formerly the former Palm Beach, Florida state attorney, because he relinquished the reins. He is now a civilian. He will join us at the bottom of the hour. So let's just kind of dive right into this. Tim Jansen, since you're in Tallahassee, I'm going to start with you. This is the whole crew here. Luis, Katie, you know the players. You got Harvey, Dan, and Wendy. But there's a motion filed today, and the nuts and bolts of it is Donna wants out of Tallahassee for her trial. She wants out. She wants a change of venue. Your reaction to looking, hearing, reading, seeing, feeling this motion?
Well, it's funny. I was in court today and I saw Jack Campbell, the state attorney, and he blamed all of us for her filing this motion, all these podcasts, and we laughed about it. The motion is short on substance. It's untimely. The case law in paragraph 3 is clear. You have to try to sit a jury before you can get a change of venue. She tried to compare this to the Kohlberger case, but I think she was a little disingenuous because Kohlberger was moved for many reasons. One, public officials in Idaho were saying he was guilty. Two, the courtroom was too small. And three, the sheriff's deputies didn't have enough deputies to secure the courthouse. Those were part of the reason. So you can't compare that. She also compared Shepard v. Maxwell, which is a famous case that made the career of F. Lee Bailey. Sam Shepard was accused of killing his pregnant wife. There was a trial. And let me tell you what happened in that trial. The court published the jurors' names and photos. The media ran the defendant's alleged confession the whole time, and the makeup of the courtroom, the media was sitting right next to the prosecution, and they were kind of collaborating. So it's hard to compare those to this case where a clerk mistakenly unseals not a deposition, but a hearing of a deposition in which some of the evidence may become admissible. The opinion, the court said it may be admissible depending on what Donna testifies. So you might have evidence that may come in the trial anyway. And I thought it was really funny at the last, the motion attached a copy of the articles that she says it permeates a potential jury when she didn't even file it under seal. So now she's spreading a public document complaining about the very articles that she wants to change the venue to the public.
Very interesting. Tim, always adept, giving us a very thorough answer there. There's parts of this motion that we're going to break down, and there's a second motion that we touched upon which we'll get to. Shout out to my friends. I see Ida Shaw, Kathy Barella, Real Happy 33, and Richie, Black Widower in the Republic of Ireland, and where'd he go? Wesley John Holmes, and Aussie living in Tokyo. Shout out to everybody. Just so you know, this was kind of a last minute show. This one, 7 o'clock tonight following this. And I think we'll try to do a redirect if the COE is back. I don't even know what that means other than redirecting you guys. I have no idea how to do it. Anyway, 7 o'clock, we're looking again at that case with the Kentucky sheriff, Mickey Steins, who shot and killed the judge who used to be a bailiff for, Judge Kevin Mullins. What is going on? Why did that guy snap? We've got Hillbilly Crime coming on with Daryl Cohen, a formidable attorney, and Dr. Roger Rhodes. So serious topic, but as always, we will have some fun with it. Aunt Nancy here. I thought they had already been denied. I could be thinking of another case, I guess. There was talk that once they seated a jury, or we're going to start a jury, that they were going to ask for a change of venue, but it never happened. Jo Potuto, same question. I called you in a frantic frenzy, as I always do, or texted you, and being level-headed and normal, unlike me, you said you'll hop right on and talk about it. Is this a nothing burger, or is there stuff to look at here?
No, I agree with him. There's nothing here. The standard generally is it has to be highly prejudicial, and you can't find a way to seat an impartial jury. You won't know the second part of that until they actually have voir dire and seat a jury. So it's at best, or at worst, I don't know which way that goes, it's premature. And the case is cited. The publicity they're talking about is a far cry from what the publicity has been in this case. In fact, the Sam Shepard case that Tim talked about, the Supreme Court there said there was a lot of pretrial publicity, but they weren't prepared to say that that was enough. It was all the stuff that was going on inside the courtroom during the trial that made that a violation of Sam Shepard's Sixth Amendment right. So that, you can always, and every lawyer knows this, you can always pick and choose language from a case that's very different on its facts to support the conclusion you want. But your adversary is going to point that out, and the judge is smart enough to recognize it.
By the way, Breonna Price, who's the mother of Charlie Adelson's son, turns out was arrested in early January for a DUI. I don't want to harp on it because it's her personal business, but it is news, and just wanted to let everybody know. So that is Roman's mother, Charlie's son. Family's obviously having a hard time staying out of trouble. DUI is the last thing they needed on top of Charlie's conviction and everything else going on. Just Professor Potuto, back to you. You used the word premature. In terms of timing, what would be the right timing to request a change of venue?
When they're seating the jury. The question is to whether, and they can find 12 or 14 or 16 or 18, however many they're going to go to, are impartial and can sit on the jury. You don't know that until you're doing the voir dire and trying to seat the jury. And then you either will find you have 14, 16, or 18 that are impartial and can hear the case, or you find that there's nobody, there aren't 16 or 18 people in Tallahassee that can do it. And that I doubt. There are a lot of people that know about this case, and Tallahassee is New York, not New York City. So there are going to be a lot more people focused on it, but not everybody follows trials. Not everybody is fixated on the criminal law. I've heard residents of Tallahassee say that they've been in a bar or a deli and talked about the case, and people look at them and say, I don't know what you're talking about. So I doubt very much that they won't be able to find jurors. And it doesn't matter for purposes of a defendant's fair trial right that someone has heard about the case. In fact, the Supreme Court, I'm going to read you from the Supreme Court. It's not required that jurors be totally ignorant of the facts and issues involved. to hold that the mere existence of a preconceived notion as to guilt without more is sufficient would be to establish a standard that would be impossible to meet. So the question is not even, have they heard of the case? The question is, have they formed an opinion such that they can't give the defendant a fair shot and decide the case based on the evidence that's at trial?
Yeah. By the way, what the professor did not mention is there will be a multiple choice quiz at the end of this podcast. If you fail, you are unsubscribed. Tim Jansen, Wesley John, Tim's hair and the professor's looking. Someone's commenting on your glasses, Professor, saying that you are hip and trendy with those glasses.
These are the ones I've had the whole time. So
maybe they're new. Wesley John Holmes, a guy who I feel like is a friend of mine, even though we never met, which is odd but normal, I guess. Going through the motions with this, Tim Jansen, is this guy Zelman and Jackie Fulford, Josh Zelman? Are they just gonna procedurally try to hang this up at every turn? Are we gonna see a gazillion more motions filed for different reasons?
Well, I think they had to file the motion. It was an error by the clerk. It wasn't in camera, and the court ruled some of the evidence is not admissible, which I understand. And it's a motion they had to file. But I mean, a lot of times you file things just like a judgment of acquittal. You have to do it. Doesn't mean it's going to win. The last venue trial in Tallahassee, I know because it was my case. It was the FAMU bombing case. And one of the reasons it was moved was because after the second bombing, Jesse Jackson came here and they were going to close FAMU for the safety of the school. The governor came out once my client was arrested and said the community is safe now, inferring guilt by the governor of the state of Florida, the mayor. That's when the judge, just like the case in Kohlberger, where public officials were claiming my client was guilty, that's enough. We don't have that. I haven't heard any public official coming out saying Donna Adelson is guilty of an offense, of the offenses charged.
And
Joel,
Tim,
if I can go ahead. Sorry.
No, well, Tim, I was going to ask you that was that 38 years ago. Not to date you here, because you look
That was
41.
That was in 1998 or 9, because I tried the case in 2000 in Pensacola. In Pensacola, Larry Lombardi.
We're talking 25 years ago. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I do have a question about this motion, and that is filing it now, since it's pretty clearly out of time. And as Tim says, it introduces more publicity on the issue. Why now rather than file it at the time that would be appropriate when they're doing the voir dire? I mean, it almost, I don't want to impute motive, but it just seems odd that it would be filed now when what you expect the judge to do is to say, you know, it's an appropriate motion, file it at the appropriate time and we'll consider it.
Why wouldn't it be filed under seal? Why wouldn't you, the attachment that you're complaining being in the paper are now on a public document for which you're complaining?
Yeah.
You're putting fire to the
Tim, how does that work? I mean, if you, as a defense attorney, can you say, I want to file this under seal, and then does that have to be that has to be approved by the judge?
No, in federal court, it really does. But in state court, if you're filing a motion based on information getting out that could taint your jury, and you're adding that same information that could taint the jury, you're further permeating the problem. So you just file under seal, say, I'm filing this under seal because of the nature of the attachments, which could further permeate the violations we see.
I love when Tim uses law language like permeate. Jersey Girl, where do they want to move it to? New Jersey? That'd be awesome, but it'd be better if they moved it to Miami, so I could drive 15 minutes.
If they moved it to Miami or at least in Florida.
This is this is a great point here. Moose in the city, she's just terrified. Jackie Fulford, the lawyer and the funeral parlor owner and the former judge, of playing the jail tapes of Donna and Charlie insulting Tallahassee citizens' intelligence. That is certainly not going to play well. I mean, Tim, what about that part of it? I mean, no one knows this evidence probably, better than Georgia. but Judge Everett knows a lot. He knows that's out there. That's a key piece of evidence. And if they moved it out of Tallahassee, it wouldn't be as effective. So, I mean, is that a reason to not change venue?
Well, you're not going to change the venue because of economic, as they put at the end. And if you look at that case law she cited, that was like a 1959 case, and it might economies might have been a little different. It would cost you more to move the trial than to try it here with the court, security, the defendants here. Even if you moved it, Judge Everett would still be the judge. I just find it was disingenuous to say at this point, we want to file this. She didn't get the position, obviously. I don't know if she got the position of the government, but it's clear they're going to object. But normally you have to cite the position of the opposing side, how they feel about this. And I'm looking back, and I don't think that they conferred with the state. And Jack Campbell's reaction today was that they don't think much of this. So Judge Everett's smart enough. He knows. And you know, the other thing, I was like, she listed all these trials of all these other things, the arrest and everything. But what did she say about Charlie's trial? It was like a little last sentence in a paragraph, nothing about him being unable to get a fair jury. Nothing at all.
That's interesting. Let me deviate for one moment. Just Carm, you know, my beloved mother, the matriarch of the show. She spoke to my 5th grade daughter's class today, the entire class, about being a Holocaust survivor. And I got to shout out that these students were unreal. They were asking amazing questions. Anyway, the point of this is Carm and I are getting along swimmingly well, which not every day does that happen. And so now I'm going to annoy the crap out of her. For the last literally close to 8 weeks, I have some issue with my neck, particularly turning it this way, a clicking and discomfort 24/7. If anyone out there in STS Nation has a neck solution, I'm going to an orthopedist on Thursday. You guys are like family, so I'm sure. But STS Nation always has great ideas. Does acupuncture work? They call it dry needling, I guess. If you guys have a solution, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. Carmela's screaming right now in her pillow. Christy Allison, Jo Potuto, to you, what would a move do to the start date of the trial if granted? Hypothetically, Judge Everett says, yeah, we're going to move this to Pensacola. Does the start date get pushed back?
I can't imagine that it would. Everybody signed off on it. They know the witnesses are available, lawyers are available, judge is available. I assume they can find a courtroom if they're going to move it somewhere else. And it seems to me it would be a remarkable potential upheaval if you have to then start checking calendars of everybody and start all over again about when the trial would be. So it seems to me that I just don't think it's going to happen. But it seems to me the goal would be to keep everything in place except the location.
Yeah, we're going to break down the motion now in just a moment. I like this comment by Edward Murphy. Should be 1.134 million followers. Busy shamelessly promoting STS here at Upper Mississippi Valley. Thank you so much, Edward. Surviving the Survivor Gmail. Send me your info. We'll send you. That deserves a free hat or shirt. Best way to promote the show is tell friends. It's like the beginning of the Brady Bunch. It's like you start with Mr. and Mrs. Brady, and then there's 10,000 kids eventually. So please share the friends. If you like the show, please like, please subscribe. We've got a Patreon page where the COE puts motions like this onto the Patreon page. Now, breaking down the panel. I mean, not the panel, the motion. This is one part of it here. A little tough to read, but on the right-hand side, you see it is damaging enough that his son is called to testify against his mother. Now, with this information about his inadmissible opinion out there, no one can unring that bell. I mean, Tim Jansen, they're talking about the release of the transcript from the in-camera hearing back in September, where they were discussing Rob Adelson as a witness. That was supposed to be sealed. Somehow it became unsealed, went public, and then got resealed. Do you happen to know why that was? I think I asked you the last time, but also, I mean, what about this point?
I think what happened was the judge allowed a transcript of the hearing to be released to the defendant, and someone in the clerk's office misinterpreted it and just released the copy of the in-camera motion or hearing, which not unusual for this clerk's office. They've had some issues recently. But they're going to have to prove prejudice. They're going to have to prove that somebody actually, a potential juror actually saw this before it was sealed again, and that it made them change their opinion. Now she's guilty. The funny thing is they really never said what his opinion was. They inferred that the opinion was that she's not gullible. And that part may actually be admissible if she comes in and says that. The judge says, that's fair game. If you come in and say she's not smart and this and that, then he can say that. So part of this evidence might be admissible. So that's not going to help them prove prejudice.
Yeah. That's interesting too. Always getting interesting perspective from both Joe and Tim. Again, Dave Arenberg, now the former Florida state attorney, of his own volition. He wanted out of the job. He's supposed to join in 8 minutes. I have a feeling he's going to be late. Anyway, I'm glad Beth brought this up here. Quite a few of my friends in Tallahassee are not plugged into this case. Right. Jo Potuto, when Steve Cohen and I went up there, and Tim can talk to this too. Steve and I were up there for what was supposed to be the trial. It never happened, but we were going, just when I had to go get Tim a bottle of wine.
It wasn't wine. Oh no, you did give me wine. Yeah.
The Camus.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah. So when we were going to stores, Steve and I were asking random people. Most people, believe it or not, never heard about this case. I mean, Tallahassee is, portrayed as small town America. But Tim, let me come to you first on this one. I'm sure or meet people that, they're not following the case the way we are.
No. A lot of people in town do not know the case. They're not covering the case. If they've heard no one watches the media. No one watches the TV stations. People are doing everything on these different avenues to get free TV and, so they're not watching the news. Very few are reading the newspapers. They should, because they had someone cover the trials, did excellent analysis of the trials. But, and we have people moving in Tallahassee all the time. The community is changing. It's a very educated crowd here because of all the universities. And I guarantee you're going to go in there and see people that don't know anything about the case. Oh, they're going to say briefly. I don't know. I know in that case, when I moved the case, to Pensacola, the judge, because I asked the judge, can we come to sidebar and ask the jurors if any of them heard about this case? And he goes, I'm sure no one heard about it. So the judge asked if anybody had pretrial publicity about the FAMU bombing. 75% raised their hands. Wow. Right? And the judge was not happy, but then you bring them up or you separate them, which we did, so they don't taint the rest of the jury. And we had to make a determination whether they thought my client was guilty. And one woman said, oh yeah, he's guilty. And I looked at the judge and I said, well, Judge, I challenge for cause. He granted it, but he was mad. But you'd be amazed how many people either do know or don't know. But that's not the standard. The standard is, can they be fair? Can they put aside anything they heard and only base a verdict on what evidence is admitted at trial? And you're going to be surprised how many people can say they can do that.
Yeah. Annalie Finn, shout out to her. Miss Brazy, super planner girl who helps us behind the scenes, is invaluable. Tennis girl 101, best Nancy T. Cancella. Played high school tennis with Charlie Cancella, but not T. Cancella. Sadiq Farouk comes to us from Nigeria. If Wendy played Professor no role in the conspiracy, but she knew about it and did nothing, is she still culpable?
Well, it depends on what Farouk means by didn't play any role in the conspiracy. She knew it was going on, took no part, agreed to nothing, then she couldn't be charged on a theory of conspiracy for the murder. On the other hand, if she agreed with them that it should be done and then other people did the acts, those acts are attributable to her as a member of the conspiracy, and she doesn't necessarily have to do anything on her own. However, if you look at the evidence at trial, even that from her own mouth, there's at least some things there that if the jury were to believe the prosecution's version of what her statements meant, it would show that she played a role. But you don't need it if you can show that she agreed. Obviously, the best way to show that somebody agreed is to show that they did something to make the agreement concrete and to make the agreement come to fruition.
Look at this. Bree is challenging the professor. I bet you should be a great law student. I don't agree with it being untimely. Joe, did you like it or hate it when students would question you?
I loved it. They're supposed to be training to be lawyers. They're supposed to be thinking for themselves. And in any argument with them, I'm going to win. So, but I want them to try.
Tim, when you were in law school, were you the guy that was raising his hand to challenge the professor, or were you hiding in the back row texting?
Not in the back row. Yeah. We did not have cell phones, so I was not texting back in 1983, 84. It depends who the professor was and what the topic. Some classes I did participate. I really liked. I liked constitutional law. I did not ever question in property. I thought it was boring. I enjoyed torts a great deal. We had those. We had the guy that tried to suck up to the professor the first day, and the professor can tell you everybody got tired of him. So whenever he spoke up, we all shuffled our feet. So the whole courtroom was shuffling our feet to get him to shut up, and he finally got the message.
You didn't have professors that shut him down after the second, third time?
We did, but
Tim Jansen, give me a number here. Lewis Selt, and we'll go through some more of this in the last 15 minutes. We'll just do rapid fire questions. I'll let you know. I'll go to the bottom of the chat. But how much have the Adelsons spent on legal fees over the last 10 years?
Well, you figure they got lawyers to a retainer fee. Then Charlie's got some money, 2, 3. God knows how much the jury consultant was, $250,000. The trial. Then Donna Prepper, her, I'm guessing $5 million, $6 million.
Are you counting Wendy's lawyer who's been sitting with her?
I'm not counting that. I don't. Yeah, because John's not cheap, and so.
By the way, people are chiming in about the neck issue just to irritate my mom some more. Did go to a local chiropractor. She just does massage, very little adjusting. Helped, not that much, even though I love her and she's great. Acupuncture I have not done, but I have. If you were to come into the Waldman residence, you'll see like 17 new neck pillows. And those are helping, I think. So look, get a silk pillowcase. I don't think that's going to be.
So acupuncture is pretty good. When I tore my hamstring, I immediately got the acupuncture, and it did because it drew the blood out. And so I recommend it.
Thank you. I appreciate that advice. I'm all about even though I don't do it, I'm about Eastern medicine. It's been around for a very long time. So here comes a hate mail for ruining this conversation to talk about my neck. Carm's going to be like, why are you so self-centered? To deal with that. Jo Potuto, right here. This one's a little tougher to see. This is right up a law professor's alley. This bottom half of this second paragraph, the failure to accord an accused a fair hearing violates even the minimal standards of due process. And this is Irvin versus Dowd, 1961. They were going through like the basement in the law library. The 6th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution and Article 1, Sections 9, 16, and 22 of the Florida Constitution guarantee Mrs. Adelson a fair trial by an impartial jury. This is precisely what kept me out of law school. I just never could have dealt with the chapters and all this other stuff. But Jo Potuto, I guess interpret that for us in English, and then your reaction.
Let me do the conclusion first. That's an absolutely correct statement of law, but an absolutely correct statement of law still has to apply to relevant facts. And that's the issue here. Whether there's anything that that the pretrial publicity does that leads to the inability to sit an impartial jury. Now, if you want me to translate that, it's simply you can't have a trial in front of a jury where they've already decided you're guilty. That's a sham jury. We've seen that in other places in Eastern Europe at times. You've got to have a jury that's willing to listen to the facts, apply the law as given to it by the judge, and come and do their best to come to the right result in a case. That's clear, but that's a truism. The argument is whether in any particular case on the facts, that right has been so undermined that it isn't a fair trial anymore. That's the question that they're going to have to argue. These little nice statements of law are pretty, but they don't move your argument anywhere.
By the way, Janet Peck, please email me, survivingthesurvivor@gmail. Let me know what kind, where to get it. This sounds interesting. And you ever try infrared light, Tim Jansen?
No, I haven't.
There you go. This person says, "What's going on in Tallahassee?" There you go. You can see
beautiful
the jury
in Tallahassee, nice and cool, about 45.
Yeah.
Come on, come visit.
They've never heard of Dan Markel or the Adelson, so they can keep the trial there. Tim, this is the next one in this motion where they're now citing Brian Kohberger.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this out loud for those listening. By the way, you can listen to this podcast anywhere you find podcasts, and if you're ever doing that and you can give us 5 stars, it goes an immense way in helping us. Unlike many of the trials in which a change of venue was denied, the pretrial publicity in this case includes traditional news as well as blogs and podcasts produced by lawyers and laypersons. I'm a layperson. This is part of the reason why the court recently granted a change of venue for Brian Kohberger. In Idaho, the media coverage in this case warrants a change of venue. Tim Jansen, tell me why this should not be compared to Brian Kohberger.
Well, it in part, this is part. See, look how she put it. This is part of the reason. She didn't give the other reasons, which the judge said that the public officials had publicly talked about his guilt, that the courthouse was too small to accommodate the case, and that the sheriff didn't have enough deputies to handle security on this case. Those are other factors the court also took into account, which is probably why they moved it before they tried to sit the jury, because those facts, if the courthouse is not big enough to do the trial, they got to move it. If they don't have security, you got to move it, and those don't require you to try to get a fair jury. So that's why those were moved. And I think what Everett's going to say is, I wish you would have filed this under seal. I'm going to move this motion and put it under seal. Let's just try to pick the jury. We'll go from there. Right? That's what he's going to do. Yeah. Not that I speak for the judge, but I think that's what he's going to do.
You'll see him at the Metro Deli tomorrow. From Neely.
I set a trial with him on June 17th. So really? I'm kind of hoping this trial goes longer. And
that's right. Right after that. Neely here, Professor, since trials are covered coast to coast on various outlets, why is change of venue really necessary these days? That's a great point. I mean, Tim was just talking about not having a cell phone in law school because, Tim is a little bit older than me. However, now everyone's got a cell phone. Everyone's got access to X, formerly known as Twitter. Everyone's got Instagram. By the way, I posted pics of Carm speaking to the 5th graders at Surviving the Survivor on Instagram if you want to check that out. And I post showtimes on Twitter at podcast STS. But Jo, it's a good point.
It is a good point, and it's certainly true that the ability of someone not in the locale where the crime was committed now has a much better opportunity to learn about a trial and follow a trial. And certainly, Joel, your followers here show you can be very invested in a case and be thousands of miles away. But
Right.
it's also true that there is at least some likelihood that there are going to be people in the locale who may have a stronger interest. They may know the victim. They may know the victim's family. They know the area. And more than that, the location of the trial in the area is also because there is a community, I don't know if I'd call it a right, but it's the community whose interests have been offended or whose sense of stability and peace and good feeling has been breached by the crime. And so therefore it should be that community that is able to have the at least part of the responsibility of seeing that justice is done and that the equilibrium is repaired. And that
And,
can't happen. I mean, if
and
you're in
it's
LA and the trial is in Tallahassee.
and it's more economical because most of the police people, the witnesses, everybody in the case are going to be from the community from where the crime was committed.
Exactly.
Real quick, COE, I'm bringing in, just let me know at the top of the hour. I need to get out, but can you redirect people again at top of the hour, 7 p.m. Eastern time, a crazy case out of Letcher County, Kentucky, where this sheriff was formerly a bailiff for a guy named Judge Kevin Mullins. They go to lunch. Apparently he sees something on the phone. He calls a number from his cell phone. Then he calls from the judge's cell phone, and then he puts 8 rounds into the judge, killing him. And again, we're going to have Hillbilly Crime on, who's been really closely following the case, and get her inside take on it at 7 o'clock. Look at this. Stephanie from California. Thank you, Joel, Tim, and Joe. Look at this. Tim Jansen. I get my news from Joel's channel, followed by what is a newspaper from Canine Catherine in Maui. And then Tim, just sticking with the publicity angle, this is another part of the motion here. Chapter 29 here, or bullet point 29. The reporting in this case has been inflammatory, emotional, and inaccurate, which distinguishes it from reporting straight facts in cases in which a change of venue was not required. Even when these stories report on newly released facts, like right now, they take information out of context and use inflammatory language as to strongly suggest Mrs. Adelson's guilt. There has also been a tremendous amount of prejudicial and inflammatory editorializing in this case. Now, look, I'll agree with Jackie Fulford. Donna gets beat up on, but that's because we all think she's guilty. Tim Jansen, what is expected from a judge by the media? I mean, the media has been around since the beginning of this Constitution and probably before. They're going to report on things. They're going to say things. They're going to jump on a podcast when you get breaking news that she wants to change a venue. I mean, what are they expecting? How would they want this controlled differently? And is Judge Everett, is he going to take any time to consider this?
Well, I think the reporting has to be defined, because if you look at the Tallahassee Democrat, the Democrat is not a conservative newspaper that has been editorial in an inflammatory way. They've been reporting facts. They've been attending hearings. I've never seen Jeff write articles about her guilt. They're merely reporting what information is in hearings or been released to the public. So this is not the newspaper or community that's done that. Now, if she's talking about blogs or podcasts, that's something separate that she needs to highlight and identify. She said she's got this expert that's going to come forward. I don't know who this expert's going to be, but sometimes you object. Judge, I object. This testimony is going to be, bad for my client. The judge goes, of course it's bad for your client. That's why the state's calling him. It's not whether the information is bad. It's whether the information is inflammatory and prejudicial. All evidence that the state puts on is prejudicial to a defendant. Otherwise, they wouldn't put it on. So
that's
trust me,
what
I've heard a judge tell me that many times when I've objected.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. Professor Potuto, to you, and this might be more of a Tim question, actually, but misdemeanor OG, I was on a jury. People say they can be unbiased, but everyone on the jury had their mind made up from day one. Just my experience. They all said they were impartial. Tim, I mean, is that true? The majority of jurors, do you think, come in there with an angle on which way they think they're going to vote?
I hope they don't. You pray they don't, but they all have their own preconceived notions. It depends on the case. If you're involved in a case with molestation of a child, the jurors are all fine until you tell them what the charges are. Then you see their faces drop, and then you see them look at the defendant, and then you see him look at me, and I'm like, this is not good.
Jo Potuto, what do you think about that? I mean, you've obviously had to have, read up
Yeah,
on it or researched it.
Yeah, there are people who write and say it's impossible ever to get an impartial jury ever, which is not a useful piece of research to do. Don't know how they what the way is that they do the research. I don't doubt that it happens. I do think people try. And a lot of in a case like this where the defendant has a lot of money, a lot of the jury consultants are doing things like, trying to figure out which individual in terms of background and profession and all those things is inclined to vote for an acquittal before you even know what the evidence is. So, it's not one way in terms of the issue as to what a particular juror is going to think when he comes in, but we all have a way of looking at information, and my way is not necessarily going to be like yours, but that's why you have a group that's one of the reasons why you have a group of jurors, so you can talk it out and attempt to persuade each other and attempt to locate evidence that I might not have looked at because of my predilections, but about.
Hey, Joel, when you're picking a jury, the state and the defense, they're not picking for the best jurors, right? They're trying to get rid of the worst jurors because you never know in that good one, but a bad one quickly, and that bad juror can tarnish and kill the case.
Nor are you looking for an impartial juror. You want one who's inclined to see it your way. I mean, and you hope that if both sides are doing that, you end up with a jury that's good, jury that will be impartial.
Look at this. I believe he's the former now Florida state attorney, Dave Arenberg, soon to be, put it this way, this will not be his fee as a criminal defense attorney. Sadiq in Nigeria, wow, $5 million. That's what Tim said Adelsons have spent over the last 10 years. Criminal lawyers in Nigeria go for less than $100.
Jeez, not going there.
Don't ever practice there. Dave Arenberg, is it fair to say that you are the former Florida state attorney? How does that feel to you?
I miss that badge on my lapel. It always made me feel so nice, but no, it's gone. I am now a full-time best guest.
That's amazing. They don't let you keep your lapel pin. Do you have it in a drawer? You just can't wear it, or what?
I got lots of them. I just don't wear them, but I do have a ceremonial one. I guess no one could tell whether it's ceremonial or not, but you know what? That was a different chapter. I'm moving on to another chapter. I love my job, but after 12 years, it was time for a change, and I get to spend more time talking true crime with you guys, and I started my own law firm, so I'll be joining all your awesome guests on the other side. Wow.
Yeah, that's in a couple of years.
Welcome to the club.
Tim and I could co-counsel on some case, who knows?
Sure.
Absolutely. Right.
I don't want to involve politics, but in a couple of years, Dave Arenberg is going to move in next door to Donald Trump after that law firm takes off like fire. And it'll be interesting to see Dave and Don living next door. Any chance of that happening, Dave?
Oh, no, I think even if my law firm is a big success, I don't think I can make enough money to move to Palm Beach. Have you seen the rents over there, man? It's crazy.
So Dave Arenberg, we're obviously talking about this motion to change venue. And by the way, we have another show at 6. I'm going to have to pop off about 6:57. We have a few minutes left, is what I'm saying. But Dave Ehrenberg, your take. Joe and Tim across the board say it ain't happening. Jackie Fulford was citing case law from 1961. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you got the right experts here. And remember, you don't need a jury that hasn't heard about the case. They don't have to be a blank vessel. Did I just mix a metaphor? They don't have to be an empty vessel or a blank slate. There you go. They just have to be able to set aside their biases and prejudices and things they know and just follow the evidence and the law. So you can get a jury in any community, in any case. They got one for Donald Trump in New York. You can get one for Donna Adelson in Tallahassee. And I know that Jackie Fulford, who's an excellent lawyer, but she was citing the Brian Kohberger case. And right, that was kind of weird. Also, she said that it's because the son Rob, his, I guess, deposition transcript got leaked, and that
not
alone.
Not the transcript. The in-camera hearing transcript.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's something, but I agree. I don't think it's enough to move it out. I mean, there's been so much invested in this trial already. You had Charlie, who had a trial there, a fair and impartial jury. And I don't think it's going to be the last Adelson on trial in Tallahassee. So stay tuned.
Ooh, what a tease that was. You know who Dave Ehrenberg knows. He's friendly with all the state attorneys. So we'll see.
And I base that opinion not on inside information, just based on what I see.
There you go. Just to be clear. Phantom 6000 is a friend of mine. He's an attorney. By the way, the winds are supposed to get real bad again tonight in LA. Phantom knows many people who have lost their entirety of their lives, except for their actual life, which is obviously most important, but their homes. So thinking of LA, we did a little fundraiser the other night. We'll see where it goes. Might have to do another one. But Tim, back to show me the money. People are fixated because of the Rashbaum issue. How much do you think they will get back from Rashbaum? Before you said 0.
Well, my understanding, the last case, he was doing it by the hour. So it wasn't a flat fee. So he's earned the fee because he's billed the hours he put in. So he wouldn't have to return that. If he had paid a flat fee, which included the trial, and he didn't do the trial, he probably would have to give some money back.
This is an interesting suggestion. Dave Ehrenberg, I'm having some chronic neck pain. Joel, try a taser. By the way, Dave, you have a badge, right? So do you have to turn in the badge?
Yeah, in fact, they've been asking me about it. I have to dig it out. I don't normally use it. I'll be giving that back. The worst part is that I had a car with police lights and a siren on it, but no longer. Now, I'm driving around in my, 1987 Dodge Dart without anything on it.
Hey, I had a Dodge. My dad had a Dodge Dart, bright red. I loved it with the black top. I wish I still had that. Dave Ehrenberg, let me ask you a question. I need an honest answer. You're doing 65 in a 55 zone 7 months from now. Do they let you go because you're the former Florida State Attorney for Palm Beach? Do they say have a good night? Well,
generally they don't pull you over unless you're going over 10 anyways. Within 5, it's decriminalized. So I don't know. I think that they pull me over and they'll give me a ticket like everyone else, unless they're giving warnings that day to everyone else, and I'll be treated like everyone else.
Look at this question. So is Mr. Ehrenberg still the Florida lawman, or does he have to give that name up too? I think he could keep
that question. Who did that question? That is
Blurry Lights.
Blurry Lights. That makes my night. Thank you, Blurry Lights. I'm still the Florida lawman. That name is trademarked. So yes, it is mine. I love that name. And it's fun when I go places and people will say Florida lawman. So I love that. It doesn't happen that often, quite frankly, but when it does, it's a big treat.
So that you guys need to follow Dave Ehrenberg, who's if you didn't know, Dave went to a little school called Harvard undergrad and then Harvard Law, just like Dan Markel. So Tim was telling us about his frolicking in law school. But Dave Ehrenberg is a serious Florida man, not a typical Florida man. So you can follow him on the YouTubes. Where else can they find you, Dave?
Well, find me at True Crime MTN. That's for Midas Touch Network, True Crime MTN on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram and at Dave Ehrenberg, LinkedIn. I'm on all the stuff. Facebook. Yeah, I was just at Harvard Law School. I was teaching a class on trial skills, a trial advocacy workshop. And I mentioned this case. And I was surprised that not one of the students in my section knew about this case. And they don't watch TV, they don't watch Dateline, they're all, on streaming. But even streaming, this is a dominant subject. But not one person, even though Danny Markel was a Harvard Law graduate. So I was a little surprised by that.
Interesting. Isagal Aksu comes to us from Turkey. People don't even know the name of the ministers, forget knowing Donna. Some people think that we use camels in Turkey. Camels don't live in Turkey. Might be the best comment ever. No one's important for the whole town to know about unless he's Michael Jackson. Also Brad Pitt. I like that. I don't even know how to respond to that other than I like it. Roxanne A here giving us some real stats here. Population of Tallahassee, 202,204. They can't firm 16 to 18 people who have never heard about this case. No, they will. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, a couple of things. They could hear about the case. They just have to set aside their biases. And I think they could do that. The other thing is here we are with students, Harvard Law School students who want to be lawyers, who are learning trial skills, and not one of them has even heard of this case. So that would mean there are a lot of people in Tallahassee who probably have not heard of it or have heard of it, but just know the names and they don't know much detail. And certainly they didn't read the transcript of the in-camera hearing with Rob. Right. So that's not enough to move this trial.
Right.
Look at this. As a rule on the show, I'm not allowed to bring it up, but Joel, how's your book doing? Thank you for asking. I have no idea because my publisher is kind of MIA. That's the truth. However, Liam, I think I saw that you are in Ireland and it should be available on Amazon. Carmela's story is really remarkable. She was talking, as I said, to fifth graders today who are asking amazing questions. And don't think I didn't tell the fifth graders to tell their parents to buy my book, because I did. I know it's a little shameless, but it's an important story, and I really want to share her story. So there you go. It's out there anywhere books are sold. Tim Jansen, someone else asked about Charlie's appeal. I thought it was due like by the end of the year, and then obviously they asked to send it back to the lower court. So what's this like? When is this appeal now due again, I guess, and when would we get a ruling on it?
I think Mike got an extension, and then I think Mike just filed something to correct the sentencing guidelines for counts 2 and 3, which if he doesn't do it now, he's waived it in case count 1 gets thrown out. So the court may let the district court fix the sentencing guidelines and see if that changes the sentence on count 2 and 3. Things take a while. They're always getting extensions for the brief, reply brief. And
this is my favorite one, bullet point 31 here, as to why they should change venue. For example, in a sealed hearing on September 6, 2024, this is what Tim and Dave were just talking about. The court ruled that Rob Adelson's opinion concerning his mother's guilt would be inadmissible. Since the clerk of court violated the court's order sealing the transcript of that hearing, and despite the fact that his opinion is inadmissible at trial, the Tallahassee Democrat, as well as a plethora of podcasters like Dave Aronberg, have now published Rob Adelson's opinion. A copy of the article is attached. Again, Tim, I'm starting to get self-conscious. They're coming after me and Aronberg. What happens here?
So, Dave, I explained earlier, this motion should have been filed under seal because now they're releasing information that they don't want released, and they're claiming they've been damaged, and a jury can be damaged, and they're permeating it by releasing it again in a public document, the contents and the article.
You know what? That's absolutely right. What they're saying is, everybody, do not think about pink elephants. Do not think about pink elephants. Okay. Right. Good luck.
So another issue that has come up, I thought this was actually filed recently, or there was a tweak to the filing, but and we'll come back to Joe. She hasn't gotten a word in edgewise, and we'll come back there in a minute. But Dave Aronberg, Donna Adelson's attorney, Jackie Fulford, Josh Zelman, they now filed a motion requesting an in-camera private hearing with Judge Stephen Everett. They want to determine whether a private investigator previously hired by Donna Adelson's former attorney, that's Dan Rashbaum, can continue working on her defense. They stressed that the private investigator's role is crucial to the case, writing, and I quote, "The investigator's significance to the case cannot be overstated." Dan Rashbaum, of course, withdrew on September 17th. Your take on this, and then I'll get to Joe with a quote, and then we'll wrap it up.
I don't see as much of a problem. This is not like a lawyer conflict when you have an investigator who had worked on this case previously. So I don't have a real issue with it. I'd be interested in hearing what Tim and Joe think about it, but I wouldn't think it's that big of a deal to allow an investigator who had worked previously with the lawyers to work on it. But
yeah. And Tim did mention this. It came up in the last show. Professor Potuto, Judge Stephen Everett warned that using the prior private investigator could pose legal risks, comparing it to the quote unquote fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. This legal concept suggests that evidence obtained through improper or tainted methods could be inadmissible. Judge Everett offered to privately interview the investigator to assess any potential conflicts. And he said, and I quote, "Like everything in life, it depends what was discussed between the prior counsel and the investigator." So Joe Potuto, is this private investigator going to be allowed in as a witness? That's question number one. And question number two, much more important, what do you think this guy has that's so important?
I don't know that he has anything that's important or that he would be used as a witness. I think it's more a question of whether they have to tread ground that's already been tread by going and getting, if it was a lawyer assistant that they're talking about who did some interviews, do they have to go back in and re-interview everybody? If there was some investigation done, do they have to go back and do the same investigation again in order to avoid the taint? I really think that, I mean, I can only do it from what's in the documents and in the hearing, but I really think that's what they're talking about as compared to using the investigator as a witness on the stand. And in fact, what they decided, as I recall from that hearing, was that if they were going to do anything new, they would go out and use a different investigator. And the issue is the stuff that was already done and whether that's tainted or not. And I guess that's what they're going to be doing in camera to try to decide whether the lawyers are going to have to go back and do it again. I really think it's a question of efficiency and time more than anything else.
By the way, I got a message today, Tim, real quick. I got a message today from a previous witness, and that person just got a subpoena for Donna's trial. So things are moving. Tim, go ahead.
So it sounds like the investigator is going to be called as a witness to impeach somebody. And they want to call that witness to impeach a state witness, but that witness probably came from information from Dan and Charlie, which that conflict may carry over and be fruit of the poisonous tree.
There you go. Arlene, sorry, $20. Love seeing Tim and the professor. I love seeing the serious Florida law man. Look at this. I've been waiting for this comment for my whole life. Joel, love your pink tassel lampshade. Haven't seen one like it in years since my grandma's bedroom. You know, I saw this photo when I was putting the studio together, and it had like 30 suspended lampshades that were like old school, and I love the idea. I have two others that you can't see, but I made a note. I got to lower the other ones. It's got a grandma vibe. I thought it would have like a true crime feel. So my biggest regret today is Dave Arenberg was late, but I forgive him. I wish we just had him on longer. Dave, of course, now the former Florida State Attorney. Dave, we're wishing you the best of luck with everything. Obviously, you are going to succeed at anything you do. Professor Jo Potuto, you could be retired, just, I don't know, running off to, I don't know, Tunisia, doing whatever you want. Yeah, Bahamas, but you're here and you're still teaching the law. Kudos to you. Tim Jansen, you're the man. You are the one who always helps break it down. Thank you for the next suggestions. I hate to be so curt, but I got to run because you guys are going to get redirected. 7:00. Why did the Kentucky sheriff shoot the judge? It's still anybody's guess. Love you, America. Love you, Palm Beach County. Love you, New Jersey. Love you, Tallahassee. Justice for Dan Markel. Hey, Tim, thank you so much. That was perfect.
Yeah, that was
Perfecto.
good.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually have to go run and pee and then do the other shit.
Okay, good
That was
luck.
the real. All right, man, talk to you soon.